Good morning to you. It's a beautiful 73 degrees out. Thursday, September 24th. It's around 6 a.m. I got a great few verses to read to you. Get a hold of this. John chapter 8, verse 42. Jesus is talking to religious people, people who believe in God, and Jesus makes some pretty strong statements. Jesus says to them, that would be Jewish people, Pharisees, religious leaders. Jesus said to them, if God were your Father, you would love me. If God were your Father, you would love me. It's a pretty powerful statement when you consider that Jesus is talking to religious people. So my guess is you probably have some kind of sensitivity to God, that you're somewhat religious, whether you call yourself a Christian or not. But can I just ask you the bold question, do you believe Jesus is God? See, a lot of us can get caught up in lies just simply because we're not believing Jesus. So look around you. Look at all the dysfunction going on in our world today. See, there's truth, and then there's lies. There's Jesus, and then there's liars. And Jesus is saying to a group of people, religious people, you guys are liars. Jesus is saying, if God was your Father, so who's your daddy? I'm speaking of spiritual daddy. Today, who's your spiritual father? I believe, to the best of my knowledge, my spiritual father is God the Father. And I'm a leader. I'm a religious leader. I'm a pastor. Jesus is coming right out saying, if God were your Father, you would love me. So if love is not a part of your substance, your core, you have to really stop. You could be lying to yourself. Jesus is challenging not just ethical, not just moral. He's challenging these religious leaders, these religious people, that you could be self-deceived. Jesus said to them, if God were your Father, you would love me. His argument goes on to say, for I proceeded forth and came from God. For I have not even come on my own initiative, but He sent me. Have you noticed around you how easy it is for life to fall apart? How quickly people become hateful, mean, and it doesn't matter which part of society we're talking about. It could be your own children. It could be as parents, could be in your marriage, it could be with your neighbors or at work. Life quickly falls apart. We get caught up in lies, deception. Jesus said to them, if God were your Father, you would love me. So in our world in which we look at, whether it's Tempe, Mesa, Phoenix, whether it's America, whether it's Earth, Jesus is boldly saying, I'm God. I wonder where you're at in this pursuit of love, this pursuit of truth. Or are you caught up in your own set of lies? If God were your Father, who's your daddy? Really? Who's your father? had a recent breakfast with a police officer. This police officer's about ready to retire, and he has this desire to help everyone love each other better. See, you would love Jesus if God was your Father. Jesus is talking to religious people who do not love Jesus. They want to murder Jesus. It doesn't take long in our culture today to see the lack of love between husband and wife, between skin colors, red, yellow, black, or white. It doesn't take long to see the lack of love between protesters, people who want to do violence against anyone, anything. Jesus said to religious people, if God were your Father, you would love me. Do you remember the Bible speaks about this love of God is powerful? Love covers a multitude of sins. My heart aches for the injustices of our world, the injustices in a marriage, whether that be abuse, whether that be something happens at work or something happens with children, between husbands and wives. Had another call last week. There was all kinds of problems going on. Love covers a multitude of sins. It's amazing that the Bible is pushing each one of us to love each other better. And Jesus is pushing the religious leaders of his day to love better. Jesus says in John 8:43, why do you not understand what I'm saying? And then he makes this profound statement that I need to hear every day. It is because you cannot hear my word. People who are not lovers are not hearing God's word. And it begs the question, why can't we, when we're angry and bitter and mad, why can't we hear the words of God? Why can't we submit and let God's truth control us? Whether that be on Facebook, social media, it doesn't matter. Well, Jesus gives us the answer. Verse 44, who's your daddy? Watch this. You are of your father, the devil. And you want to do the desires of your father. So the bold question Jesus is saying to religious leaders, and I'm passing this on to you today, the bold question is, who's your spiritual father? Or if I could just soften the phrase a little bit, who's your daddy? Not earthly daddy, but Abba. Who's your spiritual father? Really? You see, a lot of us are walking as religious people. A lot of us are going through life, and there's not a lot of love. There's not a lot of mercy. There's not a sense of compassion. You are of your father the devil, Jesus says to the religious leaders, and you want to do the desires of your father. So the question, Roger, is if you are full of love, you're going to want to do the desires of God. What are the desires of God? The desires of God is to love people. It is to walk humbly. It is to be merciful. It is to learn to speak the truth graciously. Speak the truth with mercy. You are of your father, the devil, and you want to do the desires of your father. And then Jesus goes after the religious people and says that the devil was a murderer from the beginning and does not stand in the truth because there's no truth in the devil. Whenever he speaks a lie, he speaks from his own nature, for he is a liar and the father of lies. Jesus just brought together lies and liars and the devil. He just separated himself and said, look, I'm a part of the truth. I'm from God. I don't lie. So how's your twisting of the words with each other? When something happens, is truth a big deal to you? Or do you get yourself caught up in the little deceptions, the manipulations, the twisting of the truth? See, when we go down that road and we're not loving and seeking truth, we get caught up in following lies, deception. We're living in a culture that has lost truth. Jesus is saying, Roger, you would love me, not the devil, if God was your father. So every morning when you get up, pause and ask yourself, is God my father? Or am I the father of the devil? Jesus is pronouncing some pretty sobering words. The devil is out to murder. Did you hear that? The devil is out to lie. So when you start to feel violent, angry, when life doesn't go the way you want it to go, you see, they wanted to murder Jesus, and you know the story. They eventually crucified him. The Bible is filled with conflict. We want to take matters into our own hands and do what we desire, not what God desires. God doesn't desire that anyone would be killed. Anyone would be murdered. So take a moment and just pause. Recognize exactly what the text is saying. You are of your father, watch this, the devil. Jesus is saying these religious people, your spiritual daddy is the devil. If Jesus walked with you for a month or two, would Jesus be convinced God the Father is your spiritual father? If Jesus followed you around in your normal day-to-day interactions with people, do you get caught up in lying and violence? Do you get caught up in thoughts of murdering? Even murdering God, because at the backbone of the passage is Jesus is telling these religious leaders he's God. They just can't stand that. And what happens is there's a violation of truth, and Jesus is not going to back down. I'm challenging you as gently, as graciously, as forthright as I can. You can't move into the lies and also support Jesus at the same time. You can't move toward deception, toward violence, and love Jesus at the same time. You can't have thoughts of murder, wherever that may be, on whoever that may be. Jesus said, no, don't go there. The devil was a murderer from the beginning and does not stand in the truth because there's no truth in him. So who's your spiritual father today? Is it Jesus, really? Are you willing to have him walk with you for the next month and cross-examine what you think and what you feel? Or is your anger and your duplicity, your hypocrisy like the Jewish religious leaders 2,000 years ago? Jesus goes on to say, the devil is a liar and the father of lies. You have a choice, I have a choice, lie or tell the truth. But Jesus inserts this word love in this passage. So when you speak the truth, always find a way to make sure that love is being presented. Otherwise, you get caught up in the lies that you can bring upon your own desires, and those own deep desires are from the devil. They're not going to come from God. Your deep desires attacking people, or deep desires of lying or cheating. Jesus said, because I speak the truth, you do not believe me. He goes on to say, which one of you convicts me of sin? If I speak truth, why do you not believe me? You see, Jesus is dealing in an environment with religious leaders that were attacking him for everything. But they really couldn't find any real reason. He's innocent. He's innocent. Which one of you convicts me of sin? If I speak the truth, why do you do not believe me? If the words of Jesus are true, and they are, then we should follow them. We should submit to them. Or we're caught up in the lies and the deception, the same type of lies and deception that the religious leaders 2,000 years ago were caught up in. If love is not coming out of us, if truth is not coming out of us, if gentleness is not coming out, there is a mindset today that I have to be violent. I have to be violent. No, that's not what Jesus did. As a matter of fact, Jesus said, put down the sword, Peter. All throughout Jesus' life, it's about loving the people who's out to murder him. Yes, he speaks hard words, but he speaks words of love. Which one of you convicts me of sin? Jesus didn't sin. You see, if you're sent by God, if you're God, you're not going to err. Which one of you convicts me of sin? If I speak truth, why do you do not believe me? He who is of God hears the words of God. For this reason you did not hear them, because you are not of God. John 8:47. Let me repeat that. He who is of God hears the words of God. For this reason you did not hear them, because you're not of God. The father of these religious leaders, Jesus is boldly saying this, is the devil. Who's your spiritual father? You see, if you can hear the words of Jesus, if you can follow Jesus, if you can love Jesus, your spiritual father is not the devil. But if you're caught up in lies and deception, and you're moving in a path that's totally opposite to Jesus, there's very little love coming from you, then you need to recognize what Jesus is saying to religious people. He's saying, your father is the devil. Is it possible that you're following the devil and you don't know it? You see, that's the craftiness of Satan. Can I recommend a book to you? C.S. Lewis wrote a book called The Screwtape Letters. C.S. Lewis also wrote a book called Mere Christianity. Two amazing books. The Screwtape Letters is a lighter read. It's not as heavy. Mere Christianity is more difficult. But I would encourage you and ask you to take the time to read both books. Start with Screwtape Letters. And while you're reading the Screwtape Letters, can I encourage you to take the book of John? And while you're reading chapter by chapter of the Screwtape Letters, also chapter by chapter, read the book of John. We're living in a world where truth is no longer truth, and it's truth by Jesus' standards, not truth by some supreme person. It's not truth by what you think is truth or I think is truth. It's truth based upon what Jesus thinks is truth, because he comes from the Father, because Jesus is God. So, who's your Father? Are you caught up in lies and deception? Or are you living by the truth of Jesus? Because if you're living by the truth of Jesus, you're going to come across loving. Jesus said, you would love me to the religious leaders. You would love Jesus. I'd ask that you would just give each and every moment of your life the opportunity to think about your spiritual father. Who is it? Study long. Pray often. It's a beautiful morning, and every morning we have the same challenge. Jesus says, if you love me, Roger, keep my commandments. Jesus says, don't get caught up in lies. Don't get caught up following the devil. We encourage you to pray for each other. We encourage you to test yourself, to know that you're practicing Jesus Christ. You're practicing what the Bible says. If you have bitterness or resentment in your heart, you want to confess it. If you're angry with this or with that, be careful that if you have righteous anger, be careful that it doesn't become unrighteous. Our role as Christians is to follow Jesus. He's the truth. He's the way, the truth, and the life. In our marriages, in our homes, with our kids, Jesus is saying to the religious leaders, if God were your father, you would love me. Peter, do you love me? Peter, do you love me? Peter, do you love me? Roger, do you love me? Roger, do you love me? Roger, do you love me? And then those words, feed my sheep. Or how about the other words, keep my commandments? The amazing gift that God has given us is the gift of choice, freedom. You have a will, and you can choose. And Jesus is boldly proclaiming he's God. He's saying he's the truth. He's saying he's innocent, he never sinned, and they're trying to murder him, and they don't have anything on him. But they're so deceived, they can't even hear the words of Jesus. So as you're living your day to day, let me give you just a couple of applications. Number one, which voice are you listening to? The father of lies, the father of deception, the father of murder. You may not know that you're listening to the devil. The way to know that whether you're listening to the devil or you're listening to God is study the words of Jesus. Study the Bible. Discern. Evaluate. If you're moving toward anger, red flag. Yes, there's righteous anger. My challenge is rarely do I find a human being who knows how to do righteous anger the way Jesus did it, and the way Jesus did it again and again. Don't get caught up in lies. Don't get caught up in deception. Love Jesus well. Love each other well. Put your arms around your children. Put your arms around your neighbors, red, yellow, black, or white. Love one another. Jesus says, as I've loved you. Roger, if you love me, keep my commandments. It's a beautiful morning. Sun's about ready to come up. It's getting close to 6:30. This week, we'd encourage each one of you to join us on live streaming Saturday at 10 a.m. on our FBC Tempe Facebook for the intersect service, 10 a.m. Saturday, or anytime after that. You can go on virtual and see the videos. And then Sunday, 9:30 and 11. And then 6 p.m. Sunday on campus. We have face-to-face or live streaming. We encourage people to wear a mask. We encourage people social distance. We have opened up Kids City at 11. We have opened up our junior high and high school at 9:30. We are slowly reopening the campus, trying to be honoring to God as well as honoring to those in government authority, trying to protect. That's very important. If you're able to help our church financially, I would say thank you. Can I just encourage you to go on to our website and look up a donation, and you can make online donations. We're probably moving now toward about 20 to 30,000 behind. We believe God has a way of providing, so we're trusting Him for that. You can also mail a check to the church, 4525 South McClintock, Tempe, Arizona. You can also drop by and drop a check off at the front office. In closing, let me just nudge you. Who's your father, spiritually speaking? Who's your father? Don't get caught up. Don't get caught up in the lies and the deception that move you away from loving Jesus well, from loving people well. Move toward Jesus. Blessings on you. Have a good one.